Hello, it's Sonia here with the Pretty Stitch. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, I'm so happy to have you here. So today is Wednesday, and that means it's the Stitch of the Week. So for today we are going to be doing another Tunisian stitch pattern. I hope you're not getting tired of Tunisian. It is called Tunisian Crochet, and I really love this stitch pattern. I think it's really beautiful, and it's pretty simple to do actually. If you know basics in Tunisian, then you shouldn't have any trouble doing this stitch pattern. So for this particular stitch pattern, I like to use a little bit of a larger hook. So this is a K hook or a 6.5 millimeter, and I'm just going to be using some basic worsted weight yarn, my go-to because I have so much of it, and I think it really showcases the stitch pattern really nicely. And also with this particular stitch pattern, I suggest a yarn that has a little bit more of a tighter weave, because then it really shows off the stitch pattern really nicely. And maybe one that's not super dark, like black. Black would not be a super great choice, I don't think. Okay, so to do this stitch pattern, I don't know what it's called. I'm going to call it the Tunisian Slant stitch. Maybe it has an actual name. I was just playing around with stitches, and then this one kind of popped up, and so maybe it's already out there. I really don't know, but I haven't seen it, so I'm just going to call it the slant stitch. Alright, so to get started, we're going to work an even number. So I'm just going to chain 12. Alright, so I have my 12 chains here, and I'm just going to work in my second chain for my hook in the back bump and just pull up loops. So this is the setup row, and this is row 1, and a lot of Tunisian patterns start out this way, nothing exciting, you're just pulling up your loops, getting going here. Alright, so I should have 12 loops on my hook. If I chain 12, then I should have 12 on my hook. Yep, we have 12. Alright, so we're just going to work these guys off in regular Tunisian. So I'm going to yarn over, pull through 1, and yarn over, pull through 2 for the rest of the row. Alright, so I have completed my row 1. So now we're going to start with the stitch pattern, and it's going to be made in 2 rows. So you're going to repeat rows 2 and 3 for however long you would like your swatch. So to start, we are going to skip this first bar right here, and we're going to work Tunisian simple stitch in the second, in this next bar. So there we go, just a basic Tunisian simple. Now we're going to go back and work Tunisian simple in the one we skipped. So you just kind of wrap your hook around there. Not really wrap it, you just kind of just twist it really easy. Pull up that loop, work Tunisian simple. So now we've made a cross stitch. So I actually do have a pattern of Tunisian cross, but we're going to do something with this. So now we're going to continue that across. You're going to skip the next one and work Tunisian simple in the next. And then go back in the work in the one that we skipped, Tunisian simple. And just do that again, skip the next bar, work Tunisian simple in the next, and then go back in the one we skipped. And you're just going to do that all the way until you get to the end. And so we're almost to the end, so I'm going to skip this one. I have 3 stitches left. Work my Tunisian simple in next, and then work Tunisian simple in the one I skipped. And then I'm working a Tunisian knit stitch in the last stitch because I just prefer to do that. You can certainly just work a Tunisian simple if you would like, but I prefer a Tunisian knit. I think it just gives a cleaner edge. So now we're just working these guys off in regular return pass. So I pulled through the 1 stitch, and now I'm just pulling through 2 all the way across. So Tunisian is always in 2 parts. You have your forward pass, and your return pass, and that equals 1 row. So an easy way to count your rows is you look on the side and it looks like a top of a regular crochet stitch. So you have 1, 2 rows right there. Okay, so as I said before, you're going to be repeating rows 2 and 3. So we did row 2, so now we're going to do row 3. So what we're going to do for row 3 is you're going to work in that first stitch here, so we're not skipping anything, and you're going to work a Tunisian simple stitch like that. So now we are going to skip the next bar here and work Tunisian simple in the next one. And now we go back and work in this one we skipped. So this is going to start to cause it to slant, hence the name. So we're going to skip the next one and work Tunisian simple in the next, and then go back and work a Tunisian simple in the one we skipped. So it's just a variation of the Tunisian cross stitch, and it just creates a slightly different fabric. It creates a real pretty slanted stitch effect. And as you get in a couple rows of your swatch, you really see the stitch pattern, you know, starting to emerge. I actually think it would make a really beautiful, like a stitch for a sweater. You know, some type of garment, I mean, or even a scarf. Okay, so we've skipped one, and then we worked Tunisian simple in the next, and then we went back and worked in the one we skipped. So now when you come to the end of this your row 3, you're going to have 2 stitches left. So what you do is you work a Tunisian simple in this stitch to finish up that row, and then you work a Tunisian knit stitch at the end, or whatever, you know, Tunisian stitch you want to work on the end. So there we have row 3 for the forward pass. So now we're just going to work these guys off. So pull through the 1 and then pull through the 2 for the rest of the row. Okay, so now we're going to go back and we're going to repeat row 2. So you're going to skip this first one here and then work your Tunisian simple in the next one. And then we're going to go back and work in the one that we skipped. And we're going to repeat that all the way across. Skip the next one, work Tunisian simple in the next, and then go back and work in the one we skipped. And because we kind of mix things up with the rows, you don't really see, you see it crossed a little bit, but what you really see is the slant a lot more. So I skipped the next one, and then I'm going to work in the next one, then I go back and work in the one I skipped. So I've got my last 3, so I'll skip that guy and then work in that one, and go back and work in the one that I skipped. And then we just work in our final stitch. As I said before, I do a Tunisian knit. And that guy made that last one pretty tight, which is a problem of mine. I'm a tight crocheter by nature. Alright, so let's work these ones off. So pull through the 1 and then pull through 2. So this is our return pass again. Now since we did not work any purls, you can see she's curling. So if I was using this stitch pattern, like let's say in a scarf or a cowl or something, I would probably incorporate some purl stitches to combat the curling, maybe pop some on the ends or have some on the bottom. So if the curling really bothers you, you know, popping in some purls, really, I call them the curl busters, it really helps with that. Alright, so now we finished our even row, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So we repeated row 2 for row 4. Now we need to work on row 5, and we're going to repeat row 3. So row 3, you work a Tunisian simple in your first stitch there. Then you skip the next one and then work in the next. And then you go back in the one you skipped. Skip the next, work in the next. Go back in the one you skipped. And just keep doing that across. skip the next, work in the one you skipped, and then go back and yeah, work in the one you skipped. We just did that. So now you can see we have the 2 stitches left, so you just work the Tunisian simple and then work in your last stitch there. And there you can really start to see the stitches start to, you know, see that slant showing up. And I am going to work these off. Okay, so there we go for row 5. So I'll work a couple more rows and then I'll show you how we can work these stitches completely off. Okay, so I have worked 11 more rows here, and what I forgot to say is I think it looks best if you end on an even row. So I'm going to work one more row, so row 12, and then we're going to bind off or finish off our stitches for row 13. So I'm going to skip my first stitch and just work Tunisian simple in the next. And just keep doing that across, skipping the next stitch, working Tunisian simple in the next. And then my knit stitch. And we'll just work these guys off a regular return pass here. Okay, so now we're going to bind these guys off because you don't want to end it just like that. That does not look cute. So now we need to work our final row. So this is an odd row. This is row 13. So you're going to bind these guys off, work these guys off like how you would do an odd row for the regular part of the pattern. So our first stitch is just a Tunisian simple. So you insert your hook like a Tunisian simple and then just pull through. It's basically like working a slip stitch. So now we are going to skip this next one. So you're going to work in the pattern. You're going to insert your hook, Tunisian simple, and just work the slip stitch. Now we need to go back and work in the one we skipped. And the reason why I like doing it with the odd row is because you can see that the pattern is going, you know, it's slanting. So when you bind off on an odd row, then it really helps to reinforce that slanted look instead of binding off on an even row or finishing off on an even row. So I'm going to go back and work in the one I skipped. So in case you were wondering, I know I tend to over-explain things sometimes, but I do have reasons for why I do things. Alright, let's skip the next one. I'm not crazy. Well, maybe I am, but at least with this, hopefully not. Alright, so let's go back. Work in the one we skipped. Skip the next. Work that one off. And I like to work off my finishing row just kind of on the looser side so they don't get too tight. Skip that one. So now we're at our last 2 stitches, so we just work a regular Tunisian simple, finishing that guy off. There we go. And then our final knit stitch here. And I like to work a knit stitch and then finish her off. Okay, so here we go with the final stitch pattern. So as I said, I think it's really, really pretty. This would probably make a really cute, like, headband too if you flip it around the other way. And then you could just work as many rows as you need, and then because it has a really easy clean edge, you could either slip stitch it shut, you know, the 2 ends, sew it closed, and then you could add like, you know, a bow to cover it up, or even some really cute buttons in the front to cover up that seam, or just have the seam in the back, and you have a super cute headband, like a really easy project. So I hope you enjoyed this stitch of the week, and I thank you so much for watching.